I'm Shashi and this is Karisu. MH370, a flight which went missing almost 6 years ago, actually more than 6 years ago. And most of us speculated that this might be a hijacking issue or some equipment malfunction issue which caused the plane to crash or something. But what if I told you that all this was because of one person? And what if I told you that the reason why the flight was not found until now is because of mere carelessness and incompetence? Before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video, and let's get to it. On March 8, a flight took off from KL to head to Beijing. It was manned by pilot in charge Zahari and co-pilot Farid Hamid. Flight took off at 12:42 AM. There were a total of 10 flight attendants on the plane with 227 passengers, 38 of them who were Malaysians. Most of them were from China and the others were from various countries all around the world. So at 1:08 AM, the flight finally crossed the Malaysian coastline, and 11 minutes later, the Malaysian ground staff, the controller, radioed in saying Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9, good night. In return to this, the actual protocol is they have to respond and read back the frequency. But to this, our Captain Zahari only replied Malaysian 370, good night. What happened after this has been a mystery for all this while. And based on our recent findings and actually older findings, things our Malaysian authorities knew a long time ago but refused to release the data or tried to hide it and cover it up, now shows exactly what happened to this flight. This particular radioing was the last time the Malaysian Airlines MH370 was ever contacted. They never checked in to Ho Chi Minh and they never responded to any subsequent attempts to contact them. So to understand this a bit, aviation system has two radars, primary and secondary. Primary radar is just for basic information saying that okay, this flight is here, okay, located from this particular satellite. And the secondary radar provides more information, what kind of flight it is, what's the trajectory, what's the name of the flight, who's flying it, all this stuff. 5 seconds after Malaysian Airlines crossed into Vietnamese airspace, the symbol showing the transponder disappeared from the radar in Malaysia. 37 seconds later, the entire plane disappeared from the secondary radar. At 1:21 AM, 39 minutes after the flight has gone completely missing, the ground staff controller team did not notice that it was actually missing. And when they finally noticed that it was missing, nothing was done because they assumed that it was taken over by Ho Chi Minh and that it was out of Malaysia's range. From the Vietnamese side, they saw the MH370 cross into their airspace and that it went missing, but they did not do anything as well. According to protocol, they were supposed to call into KL to report that the flight is missing within 5 minutes if the flight hasn't responded, but nothing was done there. They tried repeatedly to contact the flight, but there was no response, and only 18 minutes later did they call KL and inform that the flight was missing. And what ensued was a series of confusion and incompetence. The KL Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center should be notified within 1 hour if the flight has not been located, if the flight is out of the radar, but only 4 hours later were they even informed and rescue mission was started. The initial search, up to what we were informed through our mainstream media, was concentrated in the South China Sea between Malaysia and Vietnam, with 34 ships, 28 aircrafts and 7 countries pulling in their effort together. On top of this, family members of the missing people, now I think we can safely assume that deceased passengers, pull in their own money as well to facilitate this rescue mission. And now with the additional data we have and with all the radar information and the Secret Military Air Force information we got, we know exactly what happened. So the moment the flight went missing from the Malaysian airspace and the Vietnamese airspace, instead of going in a straight line straight to Beijing, the flight actually went up 40,000 feet in the air, and 40,000 feet is the limit for MH370. When a flight goes up that sharply and that fast, the amount of G-force on the passengers would have caused them to pass out. While they passed out with the depressurization of the flight, they would have suffocated and died there and then, meaning they died almost 6 hours before the plane actually crashed at all. And once it went to that height, the flight turned back and came straight towards Malaysia again. It was heading towards Penang, Penang being the place Zahari was born and raised. The flight hovered around Penang for a while as if to say Zahari was taking a look at the place he was born at for one last time, and then took off northwest to evade all the satellites and radars in the way past Indonesia. And this is where the last of where the national radars picked up the signal of MH370. But luckily for us, the plane was finally picked up or pinged by an independent private satellite, an Indian Ocean satellite operated by a company called Inmarsat. in Mesat. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. 6 hours after the flight disappeared from the secondary radar, it was pinged by this particular private satellite. It's called a handshake signal, meaning it's a very basic signal showing that this flight is here at a particular distance from this particular satellite. A total of 7 handshake signals was made, 2 automatically by the plane, and the subsequent 5 were by the ground staff of the satellite, who tried to contact this plane saying, you are nowhere near land, where are you going, where are you heading, which direction are you going to? Because from what we know, after the flight evaded all the satellite going northwest passing Indonesia, it took another turn going south all the way to the Antarctic, a place where there's no land and only ocean. So this satellite managed to collect 2 very important data from the flight. The first is called the burst timing offset, or the distance value, basically meaning showing how far the plane is from the satellite, but it doesn't pinpoint on one location, it's an entire circumference of an area, so they can't actually determine where is it particularly, but they know it was at this distance from the satellite at this particular area. The second value is the burst offset value, or the Doppler value, which shows the direction the flight was flying, what was the inclination, how high, how low it was flying. And 6 hours after the flight went missing from the secondary radar, Doppler value showed that the flight took a very sharp descent from 40,000 feet downwards. It was not at a normal level which normal planes would try to descend, but it was 5 times more than what a normal plane would go. So with this distance value and the fuel and the range of the flight, they determined that the flight should have crashed somewhere in a particular distance from where the last ping was. The reason for this is during any emergency, any pilots anywhere would try to attempt for a water landing. So meaning they will try to just land the plane in water and hope that someone noticed them to come and save them in time. With this assumption, the search was done all this while, but new information has come to light regarding the pilot and what could have caused the crash, which is why now we are very confident that at this particular site the plane was crashed on purpose, meaning it was a massive murder-suicide where the pilot plunged the plane right down straight into the ocean, so no debris, nothing from the plane was ever found. Because the Malaysian authorities have been hiding what they have already known, we've been searching at the wrong place all this while. The closest we came was 30 kilometers from the actual site of the crash and nowhere near the crash site. So this is very inconsistent with equipment malfunction, which wouldn't have allowed the plane to travel that far, and it's also inconsistent with a hijacking attempt because the timing is so perfect. The moment they passed the Malaysian coastline, the flight went missing from the radar. Impossible for a terrorist to calculate exactly when, and for him to go through a bolted door to the cockpit is totally impossible. If you're wondering what the co-pilot was doing, we don't know yet, whether he was a co-conspirator or maybe from what his friend, who does not wish to be named, said, he might have just asked the co-pilot to go use the toilet or something and locked him out and started the attempt from then. The most unsettling part of this is the moment the flight turned away from Ho Chi Minh and came to Malaysia, the Malaysian military radar actually saw the flight coming towards Penang but did nothing because they saw that it was a Malaysian flight, it was an MH370 flight, and there was no reason for concern. It is a friendly flight, so there was nothing they are supposed to do. And when asked, the former defense minister actually said, and I quote, "If you're not going to shoot it down, what's the point of sending an interceptor up?" And the answer to this is to actually visually verify what flight this is, who's manning the airplane, and what's actually going wrong in the airplane. Now, with all this being said, the prime suspicion falls on the captain, a very experienced 53-year-old pilot, Mr. Zahari. And from initial statement and initial information from the Malaysian authorities, Zahari was a very competent, very highly decorated pilot with no particular issue which would have caused him to engage in such a disaster. But recently, from all the social media interaction he had and from investigating further, we have found out more information. For example, from his colleagues and his friends have actually said that he has been sad and lonely for some time. He has been, as most pilots do, been sleeping around with the air hostess and stuff. The problem is his wife found out, and to recap, he's a married person with 3 actually grown children. So when the wife found out that he's been sleeping around with air hostess, she decided to move out. And when the children found out this issue was going on between mom and dad, the 3 children were already grown and having their own family, so the interaction with the father reduced. His friends also said that he actually admitted to them that he's been pacing up and down empty room waiting for time to pass by so he can fly the plane again. And from the social media interaction and all his posts with other people, it's apparent that he was trying to flirt with another 2 air hostess, but they wouldn't respond back in a favorable way to him, and this could have contributed more towards his depression and his sadness. So with all this, the aviation and the intelligence community suspect that he might be clinically depressed during the time of this event. And also another reason why suspicion falls on him is because of the simulators in his house. It's not odd to have a simulator in your house, but the data inside, which was a bit incriminating, which was he has hundreds of flight simulations inside his data, inside his computer, and all of it has taken off and landed properly, except for one which is very similar to MH370. The flight was never landed, and that's the only flight pattern in the simulator which is left unfinished or unlanded. So with all this being said, why isn't this new discovery of where the flight has actually crashed been covered by mainstream media? Why haven't we heard of it? Why isn't there any Facebook posts or any Twitter tweets or anything like that? Why is only the Western countries and India and other countries covering this story, and why not Malaysia? What is actually going on? If you know the answer, comment down below. I'm very curious to know what's actually going on. And until the next video, bye bye.